everyone, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm Elliott Margolis, and I'm here with my special guest, Jacki Corriveau, who is the newly elected state committee woman from our area, Republican state committee woman from the North Shore. Welcome, Jacki.
Thank you, Elliott. Thank you so much for having me on.
So tell me, Jacki, you're newly elected in this position. Tell us a little bit about the position. What do you do?
So my primary role as state committee woman for the 2nd Essex, which covers Beverly, Topsfield, Danvers, Salem, and Peabody, is to support Republicans in growing the party within those cities and towns, as well as to provide leadership and take crucial votes on party platform and convention roles.
Okay, so, and I guess the question is, like, I've been on the Beverly Republican City Committee for quite a while, and up until this year, the Republican City Committee that I've been on and that a lot of people have been on in the cities that you mentioned seem to be more interested in people running for governor or statewide office. And it's been very frustrating to me. In Beverly, we only have one Republican on the city council, and that's Paul Guanci. We don't even get many Republicans running. Can you help with something like that?
Absolutely. I think candidate recruitment is absolutely crucial, and I share your frustration, Elliott. I think you and I, when I was a candidate for this office, had several conversations about focusing more on the grassroots effort for offices like school committee, ward councilor, city council, state reps, things of that nature. And of course, the governor's race is absolutely important, but I think the focus needs to be more evenly spread throughout those offices as well. I think we need to diversify our focus and really focus on electing people from the ground up so that they can someday run for governor, because we can't just keep expecting candidates to appear for these higher offices if we don't recruit them from the ground up.
It's also state representatives and state senators. What do we have, like a half a dozen Republican state senators and not many more state representatives?
That's correct. We don't have many at all, comparatively.
So your goal would be to start at the local level and try and recruit people for local level so that they can get some experience and then go for the higher offices.
That's correct. I think there are a number of strategies that could be helpful. We don't only have to focus on one candidate at a time. If we have candidates that are running statewide, we can also drop literature, make phone calls, and combine efforts for candidates that are running in different wards and different districts. And there's no reason why we can't diversify and spread the support around rather than focusing on one race at a time.
Yeah, no, that's you would focus your efforts towards the towns that you represent and try and get candidates to run for office in the local communities.
That's correct.
Okay, now how many committee women are there, Republican committee women are there in the state?
I haven't counted, but there's one state committee woman and one state committee man for every Senate district in Massachusetts.
For every Senate district?
Correct.
Okay, so that pretty much answers that. Who's the state committee man in our district?
The state committee man is my very good friend, John McCarthy Jr. We work very well together, and we're really excited to work together in my new role.
Good.
He's a very good friend of mine.
Good, and he has the same philosophy as you?
He does. We have different areas of expertise, but I think our talents complement each other really well. Okay,
well, talking about expertise, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and, let people know, for instance, your qualifications and why you decided to run for this office.
Sure. So I kind of kicked off my experience with the Mass GOP when I decided to run for state representative when I was 23 back in 2014. And I ran in a special election in a primary for the seat that had been resigned by Leah Cole, who was our state representative for 1 through 5 in Peabody, wards 1 through 5. And she was a wonderful state representative. Personal and professional issues just led her down a different path. And unfortunately, she did have to resign that seat. And although I didn't win the primary, I went on from there to manage Ann Manning Martin's campaign for Essex County Sheriff. And amongst 5 Republican nominees, she did win the Republican nomination in 2016. And that was a very big race. That was all of Essex County. So I was very proud to have her as such a great candidate to work with. And it was an amazing experience to meet so many people across Essex County, given the size of the county. From there, I went on to be field director for Beth Lindstrom when she ran for U.S. Senate in the Republican primary, eventually against Elizabeth Warren. And then actually last year, I also ran for state committee as well. And unfortunately, I didn't win. And this time I got luckier. And I was happy to win the caucus about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, I was there. It was a nice win for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I had a lot of great friends who came out and supported me, and a lot of people who I had met along the way since my run for state representative about 8 years ago. That really came through for me. And I was very happy to have their support.
What do you do for real work?
Real work. My real job is I'm an escrow supervisor for a local bank.
Oh, okay, good. So that I would assume then that you're pretty good with finances.
I would say that's one of my areas of expertise. Yes, especially when it comes to mortgages.
Okay. So tell me, what are your goals in your first year of state committee woman? What do you want to try to accomplish, say, for the local communities?
So my first priority right now is to reorganize Salem. I've actually had several conversations with a gentleman who's interested in helping me do that. We're going to start to reach out to the people who previously were engaged on the Salem committee. And just so everyone knows, the Salem committee is currently not organized right now. They were not able to participate in the caucus because they were not able to submit the correct paperwork in time. So my primary goal is to get Salem organized so we can get as much help for candidates there that are interested in running. In my opinion, Salem is one of the more left-leaning cities in the district, if not the most left-leaning. So it's critical that we have the grassroots support to combat our opponents on the other side of the aisle and really get some good government for the people of Salem going and provide support for candidates there as well. My other goals are to support, of course, the people that are running in Peabody for city council. We have several candidates on the Peabody Republican City Committee who have stepped forward, and I'm just super excited to be able to get behind them and provide them with the support that they need from the state party and from all the people on the committees across the district.
Good, very good. I see Gail has joined us, but she has to go down to and get her picture on the screen. There we go, Gail. So
you in?
Gail Burke is.
There I am.
There you are.
Finally, it took me. It was a tremendous amount of work that I had to do to get on here. Let me tell you. You know what it was? I had the wrong meeting ID every time I clicked on the.
Okay, but we don't need that now.
Well, okay, sure. I'm just telling you. Hi, Jackie.
Okay. Hi, Gail. How are you?
Go ahead.
So, Jackie, we've heard your goal in Salem, which is a pretty admirable goal. Couple of questions, and then we'll let Gail ask a couple of questions. But people that I've talked to in the past have a couple of concerns, and particularly with the way things are going in Washington, we really have serious concerns. One would be term limits, and the other would be voter ID. And are you, number one, willing to work on those two issues to try and get them on the ballot for the state of Massachusetts? And how would we go about doing that?
So Elliott, I think you and I have definitely talked about the voter ID issue and the issue surrounding term limits, and I'd be very excited to get to work with you on those two issues. I would definitely have to do some research into how exactly we execute both of those goals and how we get started. But again, my focus would be locally on Peabody, Beverly, Danvers, Salem, and Topsfield, but I would absolutely like to take up a side project with you, helping to get both of those issues out into the forefront in front of voters.
Yeah, I would assume that when you have your meetings with the other committee people in the state, that you could possibly get some of them on board to help out.
That definitely could be something that I could look into. Absolutely.
Because they make it. I was looking at the information. They make it very difficult to get things on the ballot on purpose, I'm sure.
Yes.
We'd need to get about 100,000 signatures. But you can only get, a certain percentage in each district. So it has to be a statewide project. And so I'm hopeful that you can get good relationships with people and make this a Republican issue, because it seems to me that this state, which is a Democratic state for sure, people vote party rather than issues. And I think if people understood issues, we would be a lot better off. So
I think that's absolutely true. We definitely have a lot of people who see the D next to the name and just out of habit fill in the circle, and that's unfortunate. And I think some education on the issues could go a long way towards people thinking more critically before they fill in that bubble.
Okay, Gail.
Thank you. I have a question. How do you decide which candidates to endorse? I mean, we have a lot of candidates that run that have different views, different ways of looking at things. But how does the party decide which ones they should be endorsing, or do they endorse them all? Give money to them?
So, as far as endorsing, do you mean supporting them financially?
Supporting them financially. That's really what I meant. Yeah.
So that's not something that a decision that I would make as state committee woman. That's really up to the leadership of the Mass GOP. I can certainly advocate for certain candidates.
Okay.
But as far as providing the funding, that is a decision that's made by the chairman and the executive board.
Okay. And also, I know that we have a problem here in this state because we have a lot of Republicans who don't support other Republicans, leading Republicans that don't support others. And that has been a problem for quite a while. How do we get beyond that?
So that was something that I spoke about my entire campaign for this position. And I spoke about it in my speech last Saturday. And it's something that I think is absolutely crucial. There is nothing more paramount than Republicans working together, because there are so few of us. We don't have the luxury of cherry picking which candidates we're going to support based on a litmus test. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's a good team building exercise. I think the one thing that you really have to talk to people about is let them know that the Democrats are the opponent, not people that feel differently from you on a certain issue. We can't be one issue voters here when it comes to the GOP side of things. We really do have to find common ground and realize that no one's going to agree with you on everything. We have to live by Reagan's 80-20 rule and find the strength to support each other regardless of how we feel about certain issues.
I mean, I would imagine, for instance, I've been married almost 48 years. Gail is over 50, okay? There's compromise in order to make these things work. And like you said, you can't expect everybody to agree with everything. I don't agree with everything that Governor Baker has done. But Governor Baker is a heck of a lot better than his Democratic opponent. And again, we need to talk about issues rather than people or parties. So I figure you're really on target there. Gail.
Now, Jacki, do you have much interaction with the head of the chair of the Peabody City Committee, Kia?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, because I met her a few years ago, and I haven't seen much going on. I don't know whether they don't have many people involved. I just don't know. But I wondered, maybe the two of you working together can get things going to inspire more people to join and to support you.
Absolutely. I think it's been very difficult over the past 12 to 14 months with COVID and the pandemic.
Right.
We've been attempting to meet over Zoom. I know some committees have been more successful at it than others, depending on the computer literacy of the members and schedules and all of those things. But I think he and I in the past have worked very well together. She was my campaign manager when I ran for state rep 8 years ago, and we did a tremendous job. She did a tremendous job. Back then, and continues to do a tremendous job. Before the pandemic, we had 20 to 30 people showing up at our meetings, and we really did have a nice panel of speakers as well, and we were able to set up door knocks and phone banks and things like that. So I really look forward to working with her to get those things back up and running.
Okay. You see, I live at Brooksby. I live at Brooksby Village here in Peabody, and although most of the people here are liberals, they're Democrats, there are 50, 60, maybe more conservatives. And some of them would like to get involved, or at least have, even if they don't go to meetings, at least do something to support the conservative movement.
Okay, that's really good to know. I was not, I know that she ran for Ward 4, and she would definitely be very familiar with what's going on at Brooksby, so I really look forward to talking to her about that. Okay. And I definitely have spoken to several people at Brooksby who are very civically engaged, so I'm not surprised to hear that there are definitely people who want to get involved. Yeah. That's something I would love to follow up on.
Okay.
Let's talk about a couple of more issues that I think are important. One is there's a number of cities in Massachusetts that are sanctuary cities. And I know I'm opposed to sanctuary cities. How does the Republican Party feel about that? And what can they do about it?
So I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I'm aggressively opposed to sanctuary cities. When I ran Paul Prevy's race for mayor back in, I believe it was 2017, Salem was well on its way to becoming a sanctuary city, and he was on the ballot for mayor, and that's something we opposed very strongly. And I would suggest that someone who opposes it strongly and is concerned about their city becoming a sanctuary city, talk to their town selectmen, city council, head selectmen, mayor, whomever they can get a hold of, to let them know how they feel, and that it really is a public safety issue. It's an immigration issue, and it's an issue that's going to affect everything from the schools to our police forces to our fire departments, and anything that's really publicly funded is going to be overburdened by cities becoming sanctuary cities.
Well, Beverly is a sanctuary city for the schools.
Okay.
And I know Gail and I were both at the city council meeting and the school committee meetings when they were talking about it. They don't listen. We were booed. We got up to speak and we were booed because of our position of not being a sanctuary city, which is, I was astounded at that. It's like we were the enemy trying to protect Americans.
But after we spoke, Elliott, don't forget, someone from the audience came out. We had left the room. Someone came out and thanked us for speaking out. Yeah. It didn't do much good, but even to have one person agree with us.
It does cost us a lot of money to be a sanctuary city. And there is, unfortunately, and I don't know if there's a causal link or not, but there is, unfortunately, a drug issue in the city of Beverly. So it's a problem. What other issues, Jacki, do you think are important to work on?
I think one of the most important issues that isn't being spoken about enough, and I'm so glad you asked this because I'm starting to educate myself about this as well, is the voter integrity issue. is we have someone who holds the office of Secretary of the Commonwealth who isn't doing his job. I started talking with my colleague Caroline Colarusso, who's a select woman in Stoneham and a state committee member. And she has kicked off a movement to educate people about the issues that we have regarding voter integrity, regarding the way the ballots are handled, the way the data is handled. Laws are not being followed at the state level, and that's very disconcerting. And I know that this is a nationwide problem that people would like to address, but I think it's really important that we don't lose focus in our own backyard, that local elections and statewide elections and state rep elections could all be being affected by this very nonchalant attitude towards the way that elections are handled statewide.
Okay, that's.
So do you think we, in our next election in 2022, how do we ensure that, for instance, the mail-in ballot issue, how do we prevent what happened in 2020 from happening again? Especially, as you say, at the local level is what we can deal with.
So I would encourage anyone who is against mail-in voting to call their state representative, call their state senator, let them know that they're concerned, because it really is, it's concerning to me. I know that the new legislation proposed only includes mail-in ballots for those who request them. So it would be more of an absentee ballot system, whereas you would have to request it. You would have to give a reason why you were requesting it. So that definitely makes me feel better about the process. But I think going forward, anything's up for discussion, and I'm definitely not comfortable with mail-in ballots being mailed to every single registered voter without being requested. So I would encourage anyone who agrees with me and agrees with us here to call whoever your elected officials are and be very clear that you do not support mail-in ballots.
Because it seems to me, we're in Beverly, we live in Beverly, and Jerry Paracella is our state rep. I don't think Jerry has a mind of his own. He's told by the chairman of the Democrats, this is the way we're going to vote. It seems like everything is party vote. Now, when we were talking a little bit earlier about Republicans not liking this and not liking that, it seems like the Republicans have a mind of their own and the Democrats are told what to do. Is that a fair assumption on your part?
I think that's absolutely a fair assumption. Absolutely. I think that we've seen time and time again that Democrats will vote the party line. I mean, I've heard the story of the speaker pressing the wrong button on his vote, on his voter, and everyone changed back after he corrected his. So that, I mean, it's unbelievable the stories that I hear of people who are willing to just do exactly what they're told, which is so incredibly sad, because the people who you should be listening to are the people that live in your district. It's your constituents, not the person, not the head of the party, not the person in the governor's office. It should be the people that you represent. And I think if we could find a balance in the Republican Party of listening to the constituents as well as listening to each other, that would be wonderful, but it cannot be one-sided.
Jacki, is your position, is it a volunteer position or is it a paid position?
It's not a paid position. It's a volunteer position.
Okay. So you're volunteering your time to do a lot of work.
Happily, though. Very happily.
Yeah, and trust me, Gail, I've seen Jacki work. She's good.
Good.
She's good.
Very
I look
good.
forward to working with you on a number of issues, Jacki. I can tell you that.
Same here. Same here.
You know,
And I would certainly do the same.
It's a shame that it's not a paid position. Maybe you ought to bring that up with the Democrats.
I'll see what I can do.
They'll be happy to raise taxes so that you can get paid.
I know, until they realize what we're really doing.
Yeah.
But is there any other issues that you find that are really important? And then I've got one more question for you after that. But is there any other issues that you find critical that needs to be worked on?
I think the most critical issue is cohesiveness within the party. I think we can't get anything done. No issue is on the table. Not voter integrity, not mail-in ballots, not voter ID, not term limits. We're not going to be able to accomplish any of those unless we can learn to work together. And I've been involved in the party for the better part of a decade, and which is not to say a very long time. I'm only 30. And I thought it was, I thought it was a little bit divided. I thought it was a little bit polarized back when I first came on the scene, and it is 10 times worse than I've ever seen it. And it's a little discouraging. So I think that people who would like to see more cohesiveness and more people in the party working together have their work cut out for them. I know I certainly do, and I don't take that lightly.
I don't know how anybody voted on this, or if they did, but prisoners got the vaccine before adults, tax-paying citizens. And
in some states,
I couldn't, number one, I couldn't believe it, that prisoners would get the vaccine first. And then you've got the state saying to you and I, or to the businesses, you've got to close, you've got to wear a mask, you've got to do this in order to stay safe. And yet the state couldn't keep their own house in order, and their house being the prisons. Is there anything that can be done about something like that? Not for this time because it's too late, but I mean, where are the priorities of our state representatives?
I think you pointed out a number of important issues, which is, I think the one that sticks out to me the most is I've heard people talk about the prisoners being vaccinated. And I can understand the frustration, but I also understand the reasoning behind it. I come from a law enforcement family. My father was in law enforcement. I have a lot of friends who are in law enforcement and who work in prisons. And the concern there is really that you can't really separate people in a prison. So you're putting the staff at significant risk. And in turn, the general public, when the staff leave work, if you don't get the prisoners vaccinated. And I can understand the frustration, but at the same time, it does need to be done. It's kind of one of those things that no one really likes to hear about, and no one really likes to know that it goes on, but it really is for the sake of public safety and for the sake of the people who staff the prisons, all the way from, the superintendents down to the maintenance staff. And it is very important that those people remain safe. So I can understand why they do it, and I certainly understand why people are frustrated. And as far as the other points you've touched on, shutting down the businesses, people's livelihoods obviously took a nosedive as a result of this pandemic. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a state representative. I'm not a state senator. So I definitely share the frustration more than anything. I can't tell anyone what the right or wrong thing would be to do, other than to, talk to your doctor about your risk level, do your best to keep your exposure to people who have been sick to a minimum, and really just use common sense. It kills me to see restaurants going out of business. But it also, I don't know what the right answer is. I think the more people that stay safe, the better. And like I said, I don't know what the right answer is there. And I really think that everyone using their best judgment is what's best. And I always do question the place of government when it comes to dictating how businesses stay open or whether or not they can stay open.
Okay, we've got about a minute left. So Gail, you got a quick question?
No, just a comment about the frustration of the elderly not being able to get the vaccine. I think it was a case of poor distribution methods. I know I have a number of friends that had to go. One had to go into Boston, the other one had to go to Gloucester. So I think, that should have been straightened out before any of this started so that they would know what to do. And I would hope that, the Republicans in this state would step up to the plate and urge the governor to do a better job.
Okay, Jacki, we've got a few seconds to go. Would you like to have some closing remarks about your job and what you hope to accomplish?
Sure, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone that showed up to the caucus in the rain a week and a half ago and stood in line to show their support, not just for me, but for the whole democratic process. Not many people going in knew how the caucus process worked, and they took the time to learn it. They took the time to educate themselves on how in what a state committee does for the Mass GOP. And so I think that was so important, regardless of who you voted for. I think we all did something really important by participating in that caucus. So I just want to thank everyone for being there. I want to thank the Mass GOP for running it. I want to thank everyone for their support and putting me in this position. And I promise to work with anyone who's willing to work with me to grow this party and to get better representation on Beacon Hill and in every state, in every city and town across the district.
Okay, Jackie, thanks very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you both so much for having me on.
Very nice to
We
meet you.
appreciate it, and good luck in your position.